This is day 20 of the Russian invasion. Russia has launched fresh attacks on Ukraine's capital. The missile attacks are devastating. The situation on the ground is worsening. This is Kiev. It looks like a peaceful neighborhood, doesn't it? But hold that thought for a few seconds. A man was walking down the street when a missile struck. The Ukrainians had intercepted this missile, but they could not keep it away from the civilian areas. Kiev was struck by Russian shelling today. Is Russia trying to take Kiev? Ukraine thinks Russian forces could run out of firepower. Top Ukrainian advisors believe that the war will be over by May. So is Russia hitting Kiev with everything it has got? Does it want diplomatic leverage by bombing Kiev? On Gravitas tonight, we will discuss. First, let's tell you how the day panned out in Kiev. Two powerful explosions were heard at dawn today. A 16-story building was bombed. Few other buildings were targeted as well. Ukraine says Russian forces are firing missiles on civilians. At least 4 people died in the bombings today. 48 were rescued. Those who survived say they were lucky.
Thank God, we stayed alive. Look here, a handicapped person was lying here that I couldn't bring away. I can't reach any service.
It is devastating indeed. A 35-hour-long curfew has been imposed in the city. Russian fighter jets seem to have reached Kiev, but Russian soldiers are still on the outskirts. Reports say Russian troops are 9 kilometers away from the center of Kiev, 9 kilometers away. Is Moscow making preparations to take Kiev? The threat is real, but Ukraine says Russian forces are on the back foot. A top advisor to the Ukraine government has an assessment. He says a peace deal is possible in May. This is what he said. I think that no later than in May, early May, we should have a peace agreement. Maybe much earlier, we will see. I'm talking about the latest possible dates, quote unquote. So Ukraine wants a peace deal. Volodymyr Zelensky says the negotiations have been difficult. There are hopes, though, of a breakthrough. But on what terms exactly? The Ukrainian president did not share any specifics, but he did have some advice for the Russian forces. Zelensky wants them to lay down their arms.
Russian conscripts, listen to me very carefully. Russian officers, you've already understood everything. You will not take anything from Ukraine. You will take lives. There are a lot of you. But your life will also be taken. But why should you die? What for? I know that you want to survive. We hear your conversations in the intercepts. We hear what you really think about this senseless war, about this disgrace, and about your state. Your conversations with each other, your calls home to your family, we hear it all. We draw conclusions. We know who you are. Therefore, I offer you a choice. On behalf of the Ukrainian people, I give you a chance to survive. If you surrender to our forces, we will treat you the way people are supposed to be treated, as people, decently. In a way, you are not treated in your army, and in a way, your army does not treat ours. Jews.
Surrender and survive. Volodymyr Zelensky delivered this message in Russian. Later in the day, he spoke at a meeting in London. Zelensky demanded more weapons from Europe.
We all are the targets of Russia, and everything will go against Europe if Ukraine won't stand. So I would like to ask you to help yourself by helping us. You know the kind of weapon we need, everyone knows. You know what kind of defense measures we need. You know what the dire need is, the fighter jets. And without your support, it would be very difficult.
Zelensky is now making bold statements. Perhaps what happened on a Russian network gave him the confidence. Have a look at this. A journalist in Russia decided to rebel. She interrupted a live news bulletin on her own network to protest the war in Ukraine.
Подчеркнул, надо усилить сотрудничество в рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как сохранить.
Reports say this journalist was detained and imprisoned later. She could remain in jail for at least 10 days. She had also recorded a message of dissent. This was before she disrupted that broadcast. It is now going viral.
Unfortunately, in recent years, I worked at Channel 1 making Kremlin propaganda, and now I'm very ashamed of this. I'm ashamed that I allowed lies to be spoken from the TV screen. I'm ashamed I allowed Russian people to be zombified. We were silent in 2014 when this was all just beginning. We didn't go to the protests when the Kremlin poisoned Navalny. We just silently observed this anti-human regime, and now the whole world has turned away from us. And 10 generations of our descendants will not wash away the shame of this fratricidal war.
Those are some big claims. Do they represent the views of the entire Russian population? Are Russian citizens against the war in Ukraine? It is difficult to say. But Kiev is trying to capture the public opinion in Russia. Europe is now rallying around Ukraine. The European Union has announced fresh sanctions on Russia. The bloc will impose more tariffs on Russian imports. The announcement coincided with a diplomatic mission. Today, leaders of 3 European countries said they will visit Kiev. The prime ministers of Poland, the Czech Republic and Slovenia are going. They are representing all the EU member states. Europe's show of strength is admirable, but can it stop the Russian offensive? Can it protect the civilians from the bombings? So far, nothing has been able to stop the Russian offensive. Moscow is also hitting back at America diplomatically. Top American leaders have been sanctioned. The list includes US President Joe Biden himself, the Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and other key members of Team Biden. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has been sanctioned as well. Even Hillary Clinton's name figures in the Russian list. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.